Alright, what's going on, guys? We are back. It's time for chapter or episode 4, however you want to see it. I think of these as chapters. It's going to be a little interesting, this chapter. But nonetheless, let's get right into it. Episode 4. Stomp your hooves and wait. Biasha joined us at the table, gnawing anxiously on his lower lip. I replied with a complete lie. Biasha scrapped at his Adam's apple. I remembered Katya. She was both beautiful and mean. The first girl in our class with a maturing body, to the envy of all the other girls. The main source of gossip, a snake, and a bitch. Biasha started counting with his fingers. Roma slammed his hand on the desk. Smart lad. I hope your relationship works out. I had already forgotten that I was ever into Paulina. The only girl occupying my thoughts after last night was Elisa. The boys went to the cafeteria, and I was left alone, scribbling in my notebook, drawing rows of pines and two small figures lying between the treetops and the full moon. Shivers ran up to my shoulders, sneaking playfully under the hem of my shirt. Even though soaring through the sky felt so simple, there was still something evil weighing me down. Was it the stolen signet ring, or the heavy look those missing kids from the notice board were giving me? The culprit was definitely still in the village. They were hiding something horrible under a mask of penis. Or pinus. I don't know how you say that. Embarrassed, I covered the notebook as if there was something shameful about the figures above the forest. Polina put her elbows on the desk. I had already forgotten how light and graceful she was, just like a violin. I wish she could also jump around with us, after stripping away her mask of fake mundanity. I smiled, imagining Polina's skirt flapping in the wind, the stars sparkling all around us, her asking in bewilderment whether it was a dream, and myself telling her that it doesn't matter. Polina's expression grew dark again. It's kinda hard not to. Polina shook her head. Sweetheart, you were a child and she was a cunt. There's nothing to think you're a monster about. No, I thought. You're one of the most beautiful girls I ever met. But alas, you're only number 2 on that list. I decided not to say that out loud. My nostrils pick up the smell of candy, tree resin, and fireworks. Yes, the forest, I thought, imagining the crooked branches turning notebook pages, touching the childish handwriting with their icy twigs. I was unsure whether she spoke about Katya or her notebook. I wanted to ask her about it, but then I noticed Polina's intense stare directed at me. I smoothed my hair flat, surprised. I thought about the flute's melody, streaming between the bushy treetops. She nodded as if acknowledging that she can fully trust me. I was unsure whether I merited such trust. Her hair cascaded down around her shoulders. The smell was so wonderful that it sent me flying toward the glowing stars of my inner cosmos without any magic. Algebra, brother. She leaned forward and looked at me with her piercing eyes again. Then mumbled, as if guessing. Then she left. Romka appeared in the doorway in her place. He plopped on the seat next to me and started whispering in my ear. Yasha walked towards us, but Roma stopped him with an angry glare. Hold on, give me a second. There we go. Glasses are clean. Now I can see. Poor Biasha. Biasha curled his lips in frustration and disappeared from the classroom. Roma returned his attention to me. I could barely stop myself from flashing a sad, desperate smile. Rumka, the leader of Team Voltron, was in love, madly in love. His gaze boiled with hope, pleas, worries. He looked like a pure, naive boy that shielded himself from the world with sports, delinquency, and coldness. Could I really betray him in this moment of weakness? Could I make the right choice in a situation where nothing is right? I fake cough before speaking. His face the next moment was worth the effort of telling this lie. Rumka was beaming with happiness. Rumka licked his lips in excitement. He grabbed my wrist so hard I thought it would break. He left the classroom to join the grouchy Biasha, and I was left alone to stare blankly at Polina's empty seat. I just traded one friendship for another. Let's hope I made the right choice. The bell's echo wandered aimlessly in the school's darkest corners. I flew into the yard with my coat still half zipped. The weather forecast didn't lie about the coming blizzard. A leading cloud was coming at us from the north. A mighty roar bubbled inside it. The other kids stood with their back to the wind and laughed when the gusts pushed them around the skating rink. The blizzard carried that laughter into the violet unknown. Rumka rushed my way as soon as he noticed me in the tiny school backyard that was usually empty. I wasn't ready. At all. My stomach stung. It wanted me to get out of here. To bail out of the stupid idea that was destined to fail from the very beginning. But I couldn't abandon Rumka halfway through purely on principle. He, in the meantime, was hurriedly counting our inventory with his ink-stained fingers. I looked at Romka with distrust, but my fingers already found the slider on the backpack zipper and tugged at it with anticipation. Instead of getting surprised, I felt relief when I took out my real face. With it came calmness. The pain in my stomach subsided. Instantly, I remembered the feeling of flight, weightlessness, and joy. Romka's problem seems so yawn-inducing and insignificant now. The simple piece of cardboard and fur carried enough energy to compete with the blizzard's fury. I put my real face on top of my glasses, gleeful. I fixed it so my eyes would look right through the slits. Romka disappeared. In his stead, Polina walked out from around the corner, looking around warily. She had her trusty violin case with her. Fresh snow squeaked under her boots. Clouds devoured the sun, and the coming darkness turned me into a long-eared silhouette. After looking at me with suspicion, Polina started circling around the yard. She didn't recognize me. I stepped in front of Polina, not at all worried that my height or my clothes would give away my identity. She frowned and stepped back towards the bushes. Romka immediately peered out of them, swearing. He moved sideways in an awkward manner, like a crab, while still hiding his hand that was holding the flowers behind his back. I'm not a sadist. I mean, I am. You don't have to say it out loud. God. Oh, don't mind me, chat. Don't mind me, the people in my fucking head that I'm talking to, because no one else is fucking here. I am simply just doing something. I couldn't help but cringe and rolled my eyes under the mask. Rumka's voice sounded fake and totally idiotic. He was way more believable during our rehearsal. I paid no mind and brazenly grabbed Polina by the collar, pulling her closer. My fingers ran across her silky bangs. Polina let out an angry shriek, but that only made me smirk. I was overflowing with permissiveness and impunity. I intended to push Polina to the ground and grope her so hard I'd leave bruises, until the babbling Romka acquired proper acting skills. I didn't listen and just kept on going, drunk on my power, on Rumka's confusion that stopped him from doing anything but mumbling silently to himself. And I could do anything under the guise of the bunny. Romka's eyes widened in surprise. I could tell he tried to keep his cool and stay true to his role for a moment. But before this amateur superior could do anything, Polina intervened. Polina swung her case and hit me so hard I immediately sobered up. She looked at me as if her eyes could pierce the cardboard mask. Even under the dim light around us, I can see her indigent face redden. I started mumbling, looking for an excuse, in Wayne's hope that Romka would be the first to explain everything. But that failure of an actor just stared at a snow pile, his face red as a beet from embarrassment. Planning such a big show and screwing up even bigger. Polina watched us with her fist clutched before she suddenly shouted. Clowns! Her loud verdict still ricocheted off the school walls like a trapped dove, when Polina broke into a run on the snow-covered asphalt. Her shadow waved like the hem of a dress and disappeared around the corner. Romka hanged his head in shame. A battered bouquet plopped down in the gray muddle of wet snow. We screwed up, dude. I was the perfect fucking actor. You're the one that fucked up. I took the mask from my sweaty face. The wind cooled my skin. It felt like, along with the mask, I took off a layer of intrusive thoughts and emotions. Romka screeched with his teeth, staring down at his feet. Lost and depressed, he couldn't counter fate's punches, unlike me. I know how terrible he felt. He was ready to crush everything around him or bang his head against the concrete. He was ready to do anything but ask Polina to come back. He was strong and brave, but his fear of showing any weakness impeded him greatly. A possible resolution flashed my mind. I placed my hand on Romka's shoulder. Oh, we better tell Polina that... I sprinted across the schoolyard, trying to catch up to Polina. An echo followed my footsteps. The girl's violin case swayed like a tail of an annoyed cat. She slowed down but didn't turn around. I could finally see her pretty profile. I caught up to her and carefully grabbed her by the elbow. She didn't yank it away. It was a good sign. Polina brushed a lock of hair off her face. I thought that she probably stole that move from one of the Sharon Stone movies. Her voice was still strict. I wanted to shout, "It's not ugly at all," but something completely different instead. Curiosity flashed in her eyes. I wanted to hug Polina, steal her, and lead her into the forest. I want to introduce her to my new friends. I wanted the flute to sing. Polina would have surely liked its melody. I just wanted to jump high in the sky above the clouds. There, under the stars that are pinned to the night sky, I would tell Polina how much I needed her. That she's like water and I'm dying from thirst. I played dumb. Polina fought out of my clutches, annoyed. Excuse me. Polina stared into the darkness outside the school's boundaries. There was only the wind and the swirling snow. You guys are in elementary school. Calm down. I forced myself to speak, but my lips went numb and my face turned to stone. I was afraid that my voice would give away my true feelings. Words were like razors that cut my chest and my windpipe before scattering out of my mouth. Polina stayed silent for what felt like an eternity and beyond. She snored angrily and tapped her fingers on the black violin case. Finally, she sighed and spoke. I feigned happiness. I could fake emotions if need be. That's entirely too fucking real, my guy. Oh, we will. I slowly shuffled my way around the corner, and my eyes shut tight and my heart beating like a hammer that drove nails deep into my soul. Romka sat in a squatting position, ruffling his short hair. I was rewarded with the amazed look on my buddy's face. He sprang up, choking on his words. Total opposite of the shut-off silent leader that I met just last week. All right, Romka, calm down. Let's just take a second to breathe. I had only one dream: to be left alone, so I could watch the forest sway in the wind in complete silence. So I could breathe in the frosty smell through the old mask. I hoped that, when it comes to Elisa, I won't need to choose between friendships and my feelings. I have no one left apart from her. Well, maybe also Olya. But of course, she was my only ray of light in this pitch-black taiga. How could I forget about my little sister? Rumka, who already started walking, stopped and looked at me. Okay, Anton. That's gonna be a little bit of a rough thing to... Okay. My buddy smirked and pulled his hat to the back of his head. I'm not above it. Okay. Rumka winced and hid his hands in his pockets of his pants. I got tired of arguing with Rumka. Yeah, motherfucker. I tensed up like a guitar string. Katya was a step towards Semyon, and he was a step towards Vova. We'll help the police arrest that accursed killer, and our village will stop living in fear. And then adults would lift the restrictions that prohibit Oya from going outside. And I'd finally be able to teach her how to jump to the sky with her new friends. If you hear crunching, I'm crunching on some chips. Deal with it. I remember the house number I sneakily looked up in Polina's questionnaire. Romka sped off, leaving me alone to try and calm down my galloping heart. Maybe now when I have Romka's support, this nightmare will finally end. Byasha, who was chewing on some sunflower seeds, grimaced as soon as I approached him. My bestie? Biasha gave me a morose look and turned away. For a minute, I pondered whether Biasha could help us search for Kalya, but what if Rumka's crony will only ruin everything? Okay, so I want to do this simply for the achievement real quick. I could believe in Rumka's friendship, but his sycophant and servant Biasha disgusted me. He let out a poisonous laugh. He left the schoolyard in defiance after throwing the sunflower seed packet at my feet. Okay. I'm going to load now. I just wanted the achievement. I handed my improved sketch of Voltron, a giant transformer robot made out of 5 smaller lions robots, to Biasha. Biasha's face became pink from happiness. I showed him a sad smile while calculating our chances. After the longest 1.5 hours of my life, I felt like my brain was put into a blender and ground into gray mush. Anxious thoughts overlapped in my head. Katya, who went missing. The forest. The serial killer. The crypts, the graves, the crosses. Biasha crawled out of the early twilight a block away from the place we agreed to meet. Right now I was happy to even see his ugly mug. Bringing up Rumka's date was clearly unnecessary. I could tell it went wonderfully by the wide grin on his face. Rumka ran me jokingly in the side. Roma. At the same time, the village folk cooked dinners inside their homes. Lost their TVs, fought over silly things. Grim-faced men smoked on their porches. Well, rollers creaked. The blizzard arced around the village, but it wasn't the blizzard that worried or scared me. The forest grew in front of our faces, and I wasn't sure if we entered it or just devoured us with its toothy maw. Pines creaked and long shadows fetched from the taiga. They bent their trunks on both sides of the road. None of us spoke a single word when we stepped into the windbreak. Pale fog streamed around the ravines, its tail swirling in a ghostly dance. The nauseous smell of church candle wax around us muddled my mind. The snow slurped, giving way under the soles of my shoes. Bumps all around us reminded me of funeral mounds, with twisted, wilting trees acting as crosses. Darkness wailed and bubbled from underneath the frozen swamps. The wind howled in anger. Keeping track of time became meaningless. At some point, we stopped before a pile of windfall. We started carefully wading through fallen trees, in vain hope of finding at least something. Dope. And then I heard a stifled scream. I had no idea who produced it. Was it Biasha, Rumka, or me? Uh-oh. I actually never got to this part. Then I finally saw it with my own eyes, but I still couldn't believe them. Biasha, his hair completely white, stumbled away in horror before eventually plopping into a snow pile. I looked at his outstretched hand that pointed at the void. His fingers looked scary. Crazy. Homeboy's going through it right now. Holy shit. Biasha jumped up as if something bit him and fled. Rumka didn't even glance his way. He kept staring in front of himself, without blinking, without breathing. I didn't even notice how my legs started carrying me towards something indescribably horrific. With an indecisive motion, I pulled away the veil of fluffy evergreen. A small clearing that once burnt out with a precise lightning strike showed itself from behind the spruces. A circle of blackened tree stumps. And inside it, the black garage. Its smooth walls painted black. It seemed like they absorbed darkness itself. It felt like the garage wasn't just a metal box that could easily be moved from one place to another. It was alive. An insect with black, glossy carapace, a glutinous carrion. We kept staring at it, while it watched us carefully with a single red blinking eye. I tried to persuade myself that it was just a light bulb. The low hum produced an electric generator sounding menacing. I tried swallowing. My mouth was dry as a desert. The garage's doors were open. Darkness swirled inside it. I felt someone's touch. Rumka put his palm on my shoulder. Is this a good idea? Because I don't think it is. He looked far older than his real age, actually. He looked like a decrepit old man. Anton, the man of reason. Rumka spat at his feet. The delinquent brandished his trademark knife and looked at me. Excuse me. That is wishful thinking, my friend. The animal kid said he was just a man from the village. But can we beat him by ourselves? Oh, fuck it, we ball. We got closer to the building. The metal box was completely silent apart from the generator's hum. Rumka knocked on the gate with his knuckles as if to make sure it's not going to turn into a predatory maw. With newfound confidence, he opened the gate wider and started feeling around the wall looking for the light switch. It turned out to be an ordinary garage on the inside. Tool shelves on both sides, canisters, rags, and a covered car. No serial killers, no murder victims. I even chuckled in relief. Similar emotions could be read from my companion's face. Rumka entered the garage and went clockwise around the car. He rummaged through the dusty shelves, then looked at me. I got brave enough to set one foot inside the garage. Darkness was plastered all over its corners like a spider web, but if there was a spider here, it left its nest a long time ago. Why does this look so much like an altar? As in, the garage is a church, and these here are the attributes of an inhuman tiger religion. I don't want to look at the icons of that beastly faith, ancient scriptures, and iron relics. No, it's just a pile of junk. Nobody's worshipped here. Shrines like these don't exist. And there's some wax on the tabletop because they often have blackouts and the owner works in candlelight. Severed limbs, mounds of ground meat, and heads plastered with meat flies. I'll see all that inside this box. Just like a nightmare, a scary version of the Field of Wonders, where the host pulls out pus-oozing prizes out of a black box. In reality, the box was empty. Even if there was something inside, it was probably taken out at some point. It's a car. What else can it be? Just a card covered with a tarp. There was nobody inside it. No dead, no living, the stench of dried up blood. It's all in my head. The thing under the car smells like machine oil, nothing more. Rusty tools that look like steel fangs inside the jaws of this icy place, or like torture tools of a medieval executioner. The moment you touch these, a wound will bloom on your finger, and the resulting cut will get infected from the rust and the dried fat, and you will rot away alive. There's also something scarlet on those pinchers. I need to go check. Paint. It's just paint. The surrounding dim light couldn't reach there. Anything could be hidden in the dark. What if someone is watching me from there? Hiding behind silvery webs, let me stand on my tiptoes. Nothing but just old dust and old junk. What did it grip? What crunched under the pressure of its metal maws? What poured down on the workbench from the ripping flesh? Its cast iron parts crumbled from continued use. But it was just a normal metalwork vise. We had one just like it in our shop classroom. A vise for metal parts, not for victims, drops of oil, not blood. That's everything. I'm forgetting about all the fucking writing on the walls. I went out into the snowfall. Romka was stomping toward the exit when he suddenly stopped and stared at the car. Somebody sniffled from under the cover. I almost plopped into a snow pile from surprise. I watched my friend tugging at the cloak, but I couldn't muster the strength to rush to his aid. My legs froze into the ground. Still, Romka managed even without me. The cover he slashed with his knife flew to the side. There was no car underneath it. Instead, as if growing out of the floor, there stood a huge meat grinder sparkling with its well-oiled parts. I saw one just like this in Under 16 and Beyond. An industrial giant that factories use to grind cow carcasses when making sausages. Inside its bowl, which reminded me of the bloodthirsty maws of a Venus flytrap, sat a tied-up Katya. She looked like she just snapped out of a daydream, and her eyes rounded in horror. The gag in Katya's mouth prevented her from doing anything but moaning and sniffling. I threw off my stupor like a heavy tarp and rushed inside the garage. In the meantime, Ronko almost managed to climb the steel death machine. He grabbed Katya under her shoulders, and he must have pressed some sort of button with his knee. The mechanism started rumbling like an empty stomach. Ronko realized what he had done, so he screamed. It's no use. Not a single damn button or switch helped in stopping these horrible screeching wheels. We bent towards Katya and tried to pull her out by the elbow. The spirals on the bottom got to work, then slowly winded up, gathering more and more speed with every turn. Then came the crunching sound, like that of a flame eating away at firewood. Ah! Her bones pierced the skin and poked out like pointy twigs. A white kneecap floated around in the crimson syrup. I was trying to pull Katya out, but I could tell I was losing. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on! Ah! The blades crushed her pelvis. The bloody gravy bubbled up. Katya kept wailing, holding the same maddening note. Her eyes, bloodshot from all the burst blood vessels, popped out from their sockets. The blades reached her stomach. They scooped up the glacious tubes of intestines with ease. Just like Oya wrapped spaghetti around her fork, the stench of entrails spread through the garage. I stopped trying to help Kaya. She was clearly too far gone already. The girl's head dangled helplessly. Her murky eyes stared into space. The meat grinder chewed through Katya's ribcage and devoured her barely formed breast. Her face darkened due to rising blood pressure. Scarlet streams ran from her eyes and ears. Katya was dead, but the machine had no intention of stopping. Hair got tangled in the blades, and a scalp got separated from Katya's skull with a loud smacking sound. The skin on her face slid down. The death grimace made me stagger away. I felt a pair of hands on my body, and I thought that I was also about to be thrown into the bowl as a dessert. I was about to become part of the same mincemeat mass as Katya, but it was Rumka dragging me away. From the mechanism's metal trunk, a thick, blood-filled sausage with hair and bones mixed in plopped into the tray. I unzipped my backpack with ice-cold fingers. I lifted the Polaroid and wiped the tears off my face with my sleeve. The blades almost finished chewing up the bones. A torn-out braid dangled from one of the steel teeth. I took aim, got the hairband with plastic strawberry in the frame. Click. The braid fell inside the grinder. The giant machine stopped after letting out one last gurgle. We stumbled out of the garage. I grabbed a handful of snow and shoved it into my mouth, then chewed on the mushy substance. Romko was on his knees, wiping his face with snow. I crawled away from the monstrous meat grinder, clinging to the ice with my nails. I coughed as if trying to expectorate the memory of what I saw. But I knew that I'd never forget the smell, the sound of breaking bones, and Katya's agony. Romka crawled up to me on all fours for a moment. I felt like he lost his sanity from horror, and now he was going to tear into my throat like a wild beast. Instead, he grabbed my coat and started scrubbing scarlet drops from my sleeve with snow. Dude, what the fuck do you mean? Go to the police! Are you on something? This dude. He threw a hateful glare at the garage. I think you're worrying too much, dude. He didn't say the or else part out loud, but his tone of voice clearly had that implication. I stayed silent for a minute. I spent it thinking about the bloody gravy that was flowing out of the machine. Roma was right. Even if Tikhonov leaves us, the garage might be gone by that time. It would just magically teleport to some other clearing on the other side of this damn forest. Oya too, I thought while nodding slowly. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to keep my word. Now Mom will read it off my face that she will notice the blood drops or sense the smell. And I'll crack. I'll just fall on the floor before her and start wailing, scared for myself and my family. At that moment, I had no idea what was actually waiting for me in the place I mistakenly called home. The front door was open and swayed slightly in the wind. It felt like my skin was getting covered in rime. I clenched my fists. Sharp edges of the photo depicted Katya's remains dug into my palm. Darkness oozed into the hallway, and snowflakes floated inside along with it, laying softly on the rug, like a pack of vultures that sense their food. I imagined 3 meat grinders in different parts of the house, and 3 members of my family getting ground by their blades. I stepped into the door with utmost caution. For a moment, I thought I heard someone talking in the kitchen, but it turned out to be a radio broadcast. I heard voices coming from the upper floor, too. For the first time in my life, sounds of a quarrel calmed me down. The staircase let out a long squeak. I took one step, yet my heart managed to beat 6 or 7 times faster in the meantime. The door to my parents' bedroom was ajar. A shadow plane unfolded inside a light spot, black silhouette performing a dance of hatred. Mom hissed at Dad, her wrist flying towards the ceiling as he towered over her, his hands crossed on his huge chest. I stuffed the photo inside my pocket and walked towards my bedroom. My parents were in the middle of another quarrel where they showered each other with mutual accusations. Dad let out a low, beast-like roar. Oya stood in the corridor, pressing her little palms against her ears. I chased away the illusion where my sister was getting devoured by the blades of a meat grinder. Her face, swollen from crying, made my skin freeze. And I almost managed to push Katya's bloody image out of my mind. I hugged my sister and held her tight. My tongue refused to listen to my commands, to look for excuses. It felt like the screams were coming from every direction, right and left, up and down, splitting my head apart. Swear words rained down on us as we covered our heads with our hands, like refugees running from a bombing. I carefully unglued Oya's hands from her ears and led her away from the room with our parents, which was vibrating with malice. In moments like these, I despised them more than they despised each other. I bolted down the door to my room and leaned against it. My knees gave away. I stood in front of the table, carefully opened one of its drawers and threw the photo of Katya's bloody braid inside. Oya tried to take a look behind my back, but I slammed the drawers shut. At the same time, something hit the window's ledge on the outside. Oya shuddered and shifted her gaze towards it. Bam! Another small snowball smacked into the window's frame. I didn't reply. Instead, I let go of her wrist. Oya wept in fear. Across the room, wincing from every shout coming from my parents, I could hear plates getting smashed now. They must have moved their argument to the kitchen. I flung the curtains and the window opened. Hootie, Teddy, Wolfie, and most importantly, the charming Elisa stood outside waving at us. Oya gasped in surprise when she saw the owl girl. Her fearful voice also had some curiosity mixed in. I like Wolfie. Sucks that they're all demons. Okay, so like, me personally, if I didn't have any siblings and I saw this, I'd be like, you know what? Fuck it. My heart started beating faster as soon as I saw Elisa, and my inner voice practically screamed, she's here, she's finally here. I entertained that possibility, looking at the animal kids. The silhouettes of my forest friends promised to free us from sadness, anger, and nightly horrors. I made sure that Oya wore warm clothes. Mom barked at Dad like a wild beast from that show with Nikolai Drozdov. We snuck past the rumbling kitchen into the snowfall outside. Elisa ran up to me and hugged me tight, poking her cold nose into my neck. She pressed her body into me even harder. Oya looked at the owl with suspicion. But she still giggled when the bird did a backflip and landed perfectly on her feet without staggering. All the other animals, as if on cue, stopped fooling around and stared at Oya in amazement. I mean, can you blame her? I was stunned at the realization that my lips were slowly forming a smile. And that's after everything I saw in the garage. Every time I met Elisa, it felt like I crossed the river, and the sound of flowing water suppressed all of my negative thoughts. The foxgirl let go of me and squatted beside Oya. I glanced at the house, worried that our parents might have seen us and were about to ruin our fun like they always do. They then hugged my sister and replied. Quick drink of water. My little sister's eyes widened. Elisa bent down and took a English. Elisa bent down and took a candy out of the snow. Oya raised her hands in amazement. She gave me an inquiring look. I nodded. My sister munched on the candy. You know, if I'm being entirely honest, if I was Anton, I would also go with with the forest spirits. I won't call them demons again because I don't know if that's what they actually are, but I would go with the forest spirits because, well, you know. Elisa dashed away, wheeling her red tail like a torch's flame. Oya went after her without thinking and laughed after taking another candy out of a snow pile. When the aforementioned sweets started raining down on the bear's head, I couldn't stop myself from laughing at him ouching and bobbing his head up and down. Tasty treats glistened in the snow. Teddy sneezed and pulled a little bear in the north candy out of his ear. Elisa shouted at us from the other side of the forest. I shrugged and ran, running loosened the grip of fear I felt all this time. Something round whizzed past my temple. I decided it was a snowball, and then Oya proclaimed, Zephyr. A type of soft confectionery popular in post-Soviet countries. It's made by whipping fruit and berry puree with sugar and egg whites with subsequent addition of gelling agent. Its chocolate-coated variants share the same family of treats with American Malomars, German Skakus, and Iranian Bastini Zemistani. Sick. I butchered every single one of that. Zephyr! Do you believe in microbes? You see. Who's gonna tell her? Graceful rows of colossal pines greeted us with their rustling paws. Snow drifted upwards into the endless black sky just like last time. Snow piles lighted up like melted silver. The forest is actually very beautiful, Oya. It's just a Russian forest that I'm afraid of. I did my best to keep track of Oya's movements, but it was a difficult task. My sister would jump inside bushes, picking up more candy, only then to get back to the trail laughing. Hootie flew over our heads, landed on a branch, and started hooting and shaking her head. Wolfie dug into the snow with his face, dragged out a pile of bubblegum, and swallowed it without taking off the wrapping. Wolf got scared and spat out the bubblegum. Maybe for you guys. Elisa stopped in her tracks and moved the canopy of intertwined branches to the side in a pompous manner, like you would open the curtains in a theater. Behind that obstacle lay a clearing. There stood an icy castle glistening with silver. We stared at the sparkling miracle. Its towers and walls were made of snow and icy marble. I heard a calming sound of ringing little bells. There was also the smell of chocolate and burnt sugar in the air. She didn't have to invite us twice. We entered the castle, spinning around and squinting from the blinding sparkles. St. Nicholas! Grandpa Frost sat atop a shining throne. Puffy pom-poms swung atop the two peaks of his hat. A snow-white beard covered his kind smile. He looked just like I imagined him back in the day when I still believed in Mom's fairy tales. Tall, strong, and hairy, radiating frost and warmth at the same time. And his voice, low and syrupy, enveloped me like the smoke of a festive bonfire. My sister spoke with the castle's master like she never spoke with adults, in a lively, carefree manner as if they were the same age. He gave us a long, evaluating look. His real face was hidden under the Grandpa Frost mask. I was just standing there, unblinking, my gaze glued to the old man. I could accept children living in the forest and fantastical jumps toward the moon, but seeing Grandpa Frost in his frozen castle left me completely speechless. A sack appeared in his giant hand. My nostrils got attacked by the aroma of coca, halva, and tangerines. Grandpa Frost pierced me with his eyes. I tried splitting my parched lips apart, but Oya was the first to reply. I looked around at the masked children. They stood without moving in the corners, but the shadows danced on the walls. I heard a low rum, and in my confusion I thought it was the sound of the rumbling stomachs. My eyebrows shut up in confusion. Oya raised her hand. Children in costumes surrounded us, laughing and stomping, only to start spinning in a crazed roundelay. The summer reminded me of the dance under my window on that fateful night. Grandpa Frost burst out laughing, satisfied. He scattered a mountain of sweets from his scarlet sack, some of which I had never seen in commercials before. Bubblegum of all shapes and colors with tasty aromas and inserts sticking out. Lollipops the size of a fist and tangerines the size of Oya's head. Also Snickers, Mars, Bounty Bars, and Kinder Surprise eggs that we haven't eaten for so long already. Twixie. Wilkie May. Spicker. I wiped away the tears of joy with my sleeve, and when my inner voice persuaded me to get rid of all doubts, it was exactly what I wanted for my sister and myself. The true Neverland, without bullying and taboos. We're finally going to be happy. Grandpa Frost straightened up as he left his throne and threw his hands in the air over the treats. Animals that stood to his sides also raised their paws. Their eyes sparkled brighter than precious gems. The wolf's maw was met with saliva. Animal kids rushed over to devour candy one by one, pushing each other and growling. Their faces were smeared with something dark. Oya grabbed the closest candy and tore off the wrapper. When I saw that, I felt a pendulum swing inside me. Oya, don't look at me with that slick ass fucking smirk. No, refuse. I gripped Oya's wrist so hard that she squeaked either from pain or surprise. Don't. Cautious whispers spread through the room. Ears twitched on the masks. Shadows slid from one place to another. He's just waking up. Grandpa Frost leaned into me. He smelled of caramel and just a tiny bit of dampness.
sorry, buddy. Oya tried to pull her hand away, but I kept it in my clutches. I looked at the sweets, and then the tall old man tried to focus on barely discernible stench coming from him. The stench of rot and decay, masked with sugary aroma, the foul smell of a beast. I felt like I was finally able to shrug off some strong delusion. Fear, exhaustion, and coldness returned to me. You can't keep me in your clutches. I dragged my sister towards the exit, but Alyssa stood in our path. She had a china platter in her hands. For a brief moment, I imagined maggots crawling inside it, but as soon as my eyes darted towards the offering, I saw gummy worms instead of vomit-inducing, writhing ball of living ones. Anton. Tap X to resist. Oyos convulsed hysterically, trying to free herself from my clutches. I looked at Elisa with suspicion, searching for a comeback, but I couldn't find one. I remembered Vova's bloody mitten and Semyon's severed finger inside a small plastic bag. All of that was just an illusion. Like nightmares that ravaged my sick mind. The old man rubbed Wolfie, who was munching loudly behind the ear. His voice grew louder and louder with every word. His voice rang like thunder. It made all hair on my head stand on end. And then he whispered. No, Oya! Oya repeated after him like an echo, as if enchanted. The old man pointed towards the fox girl. Blissful ignorance or reality? Blissful ignorance. I felt like chilling winds blew through the cavities of her eyes, from the dark holes of other beasts and the towering old man's too. The owl's face twitched nervously. The wolf's maw dripped with saliva. The bear shuffled his feet, any trace of happiness gone from his face. And from behind us towered the one who pretended to be Grandpa Forrest all this time. I gripped my sister's hand even tighter. Candy slipped out of her fingers and smacked against the floor. Oya started to look around, frightened. Elisa parroted me, and despite everything, I felt immense anger. I heard the flute's melody, but now it reminded me of a cracking whip or even agonized convulsions of a fish that was thrown out to the ice. Music dangled about, striking at my ears. And then the crystal castle was filled with cries of children that slowly turned into beastly howls, intermingled with the sounds of crunching bones and ripping skin. The china platter filled to the brim with maggots smashed into tiny pieces. Elisa's orange fur coat ripped at the seams, letting out a cloud of foul-smelling fog. Her twisted face bared its teeth, and the stench attacked my nostrils again. The fox screamed, blood streaming down her cheeks like tears, making her fur sticky. Her bone-naked tail whipped against the walls with its vertebrae. I shielded my crying sister. Horror drilled into my stomach, rushed through my guts, and rose up to my throat. I felt the urge to tear off my glasses and lose sight. I wanted to squeeze my eyes out and go blind forever. I turned to face the owl, and my face contorted from disgust. Worms wriggled inside their masked feathers. Her rotten beak snapped like garden scissors. I staggered back and barely avoided bumping into the wolf. His face was stretching out, his bones crunched. Teeth poked out, his festering gums like shards of broken glass, and his swollen tongue kept on tirelessly licking them. At the edge of my vision, I saw the bear block our passage. Every inch of his body oozed scarlet ichor larvae, clogged his teary eyes. I pulled the shock Oya close, looking for an exit in a panic. My foot ended up in a pile of sweets, but those were no longer candy. Human remains blanketed the floor. Ribs with shreds of meat on them tore out jaws. A tooth necklace and moss-covered pelvic bones. Tiny skulls and scalps swimming in a sea of blood. The horned monstrosity towered over me, clutching a bone flute in its long clawed fingers. A giant goat that shed his kind old man form. Completely black, immense hatred and malice, he scorched me with red-hot coals inside his eye cavities. His horns scraped against the ceiling. Oh! Ice cracked and thawed, dripping down, forming muddy pools of water, bearing metal walls that were hidden underneath it. I realized that we were doomed inside this cramped womb of a dungeon, surrounded by howling beasts. All I could do was hug my sister even tighter, and watch how the circle around us shrank, how ugly paws reached out to us from behind the veil of a bloody fog. I say let's not and say we did, you know? The growling wolf's maw snapped like a bear trap, splattering thick white foam towards us. He was immediately pushed away by a rotting bear carcass. It felt like his face was about to tear apart, crack like an eggshell, letting out something even more sinister, nasty, scary. Gnarly owl claws grabbed at the grinning bear, stopping him from getting close. Oh. The cackling zoo formed a furball that started rolling in guts and thawed fat. They howled, fought with each other, tore out scraps of fur and feathers, ready to rip each other apart like a pack of hungry dogs fighting for leftovers. A sudden squeal of the flute pulled them apart as if someone tugged at their leashes. The master of this pack charmed the monsters with his soul-rending music, turning them into unmoving, silent marionettes that faithfully awaited his commands. The goat stopped nibbling on his shin bone flute. Its devilish melody that sounded like a chorus of children being run over by a steamroller went silent for one last time. A chunk of raw human flesh plopped beside my shaking feet. Consumed by fear, I turned toward Oya. She lay by the wayside, covered in pink snow. Just like the Sleeping Beauty in that cartoon. She probably lost consciousness from this soul-rending spectacle. I wanted to wail, to go mad, to die quickly and painlessly, right there and now. But alas, I couldn't. I was still inside this torture chamber, choosing between a gruesome end inside the monster's stomachs and cannibalism. Woolen meat grinders kept on staring at me with their greedy, indefinitely hungry eyes, ready to gnaw at my bones before eventually eating them, if I dare refuse their master's offer. But if I was to agree, I'm sure I would lose my free will just like them. I'll turn into a perpetually hungry monster that dances to the tune of a bloodthirsty madman. And I'll surely lead Oya and all those who I hold dear to their deaths. My lips trembled. A feeling of nausea turned my stomach inside out, but somehow I found the strength to scream. Those words could be later used as my epitaph, but I knew that my remains were destined to never be found. My surroundings went dead silent. The horned shadow consumed us. Elisa rushed to the goat and stood between us, ridiculously tiny compared to the giant monster. Her tail dragged after her, leaving behind a scarlet trail. Fleas jumped around her back and the bones sticking out of it. Flames inside his eye sockets stopped trembling. Still dolls bared their teeth in anger. I'd rather not. Hi, guys. Jesus Christ. The camels went silent, swallowing saliva in disappointment. Elisa, in the meantime, took a sharp turn and returned to the form of a cute child with a fox mask on that I met the first time one January morning. She glided towards me, dissolving the horrors around us with the smell of tangerines, firecrackers, and magic. Her soft paws touched my cheek, moved a sticky strand of hair from my forehead. Elisa embraced me and whispered in a sweet voice. I stayed silent, gritting my teeth. I was afraid to look away, afraid that this fleeting illusion could get shattered. Tears sprayed from my eyes as I wept. I continued to sniffle and shake, grabbing at the hem of the fox girl's long coat. Delirious from sorrow, I screamed, my face awash with tears. My mouth was immediately filled with the metallic aftertaste of blood. The fox girl's black fingers kept pushing a chunk of human flesh deeper down my throat. I fell to my knees, coughing up blood and unable to vomit it out. Rotting carcasses of animals surrounded me once again. Oh, fuck off. Boiling anger swallowed up my mind. Something foreign and primitive burst forth, pounced from inside me. Yeah, we're going off the deep end on this one. The ominous owl jumped away in surprise, accompanied by the fox's cackling. My voice went out and then I bent in half. Vomit poured out of my mouth, along with part of the treat that I wasn't able to regurgitate. His finger poked me. I felt like a knife was lodged handle deep into my solar plexus. Lisa suddenly stepped into the shadows, and the goat put his foul-smelling maw right into my face and roared. That's cute. He knocked his hoof against the floor, and I ran for my life, forgetting about everything else. I heard them scream at my back, "We'll eat you up alive." Shards of ice fell on my shoulder. Dead rodents froze inside them. I managed to break free to the place where pines move their branches, and I showered me with snow, like cooks sprinkling salt on porridge. The wind tore at my hair. I turned around and froze over. Yep. The garage was disappearing right in front of me, dissolving in layers, becoming dim and then transparent, before a gust of wind finally swept away the phantom of black walls. Only then I realized that I let go of my sister a long time ago, and she was left behind in the monster's den. There was only a giant snow pile left in place of the castle. A girl's wrist poked out of it like a cross would poke out of a burial mound. Terrified, I rushed over to the snow pile and started digging. Oya's pale face, along with one of her shoulders, appeared from under the white mass. Her bluish lips trembled. She's alive. My throat went dry when I remembered that I shouted the same words to Kaya before. I continued digging and prayed for her to hang on. At some point, I was able to see her stomach. Her voice was faint. My fingers came across something sticky and hot. I cleared out more snow, and it turned red and mushy. I gulped. Oh yeah, don't look. Please, oh yeah, don't look. How could I tell her? Oya's body didn't exist below the stomach. Rings of guts fell out of the wound. Oya tilted her head and stared at the horrifying scrapes. Then let out a deafening scream. Wouldn't she be dead, though? And that's all the chapters that are out for right now. I hope you enjoy watching this. And of course, as always, until next time, like and